Right. For the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 6, Class 9 on October 4th, 2024. Let's gather our minds here. As we usually do, please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you just by way of your thinking of them. They are gazing at you with their unconditional love for you, smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Feel how much you would like to be able to help them. Recognize how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it will be when we can also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they will go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning how that is possible. And so I invite you to grow that wish into a longing. And that longing into an intention. And with that intention, turn your mind back to your precious holy being. We know that they know what we need to know. what we need to learn yet, what we need to do yet, to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. Our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer to make our promise. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with the blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Nirya Tayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, to the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings reach their total enlightenment for the sake of every single other. So last class, we learned that the truth of suffering does not exist in a Buddha paradise. Why is that? Because Buddha paradise comes from a mind that has no more karma and the mental afflictions that arise from karma. Does that mean their mind's not making mental images? No, it is making mental images. And those mental images are all pleasurable, beautiful, exquisite, because their seeds were planted in that way. So paradise is the result of no more karma and mental afflictions, because then all you have is merit. All you're making is merit. All you have is merit. Okay. It's karma and mental afflictions that creates and perpetuates the desire realm, and the desire realm is made up of suffering, those 3 kinds. Second quiz question was, name the 4 forces of purification and the early source. But it's important, because if we still have karma and the mental afflictions that come from them, then we can't project a paradise. And if we had to just burn off every seed we've ever made that was misunderstood, we could never break the loop. So we ask, oh my gosh, I've got negative seeds that I really don't want to experience now that I understand. Is there something I can do about it? And the early source for the 4 powers of purification was Lord Buddha back in 550 BC. Yeah, do these 4 things. regularly, intentionally, often. So from the Sutra on the Four Practices by Lord Buddha, we have those four factors, four forces through which we can damage negative seeds that we know we have, that we don't want to experience their ripening. So all we had to do for this quiz was name those four forces. They were bleach, hydrogen peroxide, vinegar, and soap and water, right? No?
No.
It's some other four forces, right? Okay, Chris was the one. She nodded her head. If you say yes to a debate question, you're on. What are those four forces?
Foundation and destruction and restraint and antidote.
Perfect. And that's all you need for that quiz question. Third, the sutra says that a person who reads or studies this sutra will suffer intensely. Why? Why? Kong Li.
Because all the bad seed will ripen in front of you. Then you have to clear before you continue.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like if the advertisement in ACI course 6 was, come to this course and bad stuff will happen to you, would you come? You know, fortunately, I mean, I did tell you at the first class, but you're already committed. But it is a funny idea, isn't it? Studying a sutra will stir the pot when it's a good thing to study a sutra. Kind of implies it's a good thing to stir the pot. It's unpleasant, but it's a good thing because you've gotten that seed out of there. And so the seed is no longer growing into something worse, something bigger. But the reason is because emptiness is such a powerful antidote. And it's funny, it's like, well, then it should cut the seed, antidote the seed completely, and not just stir the pot and make it come out. And technically, emptiness could damage a seed so completely that it can't even ripen as something lesser. But what determines how strongly we purify a seed is how strongly we do the four powers and how strongly our emptiness understanding is, right? So even as we're studying, contemplating, working with emptiness, we don't quite get it. We're not completely cutting all that ignorance aspects of the three spheres inside every seed. So it's not that we damage them completely, although it's possible. And because they don't get damaged completely, but they get vibrated, because we're working at the level of the ignorance in them, that's what makes them stir and float to the top, right? Because otherwise it doesn't really make sense. Why does doing goodness stir the pot and make badness come up? You would think goodness would just push the badness to the bottom. So it's worth thinking about. But it gives us this clue into having a different relationship to when bad things happen to us. You know, we can whine and moan and, oh, my practice isn't working because bad stuff keeps happening. Or we can say, wow, cool, my practice is working because this icky stuff is coming out less bad than it otherwise would have. And Geshe tells this story of someone who had taken this course and they see him later and they come running up, you know, like, I have to tell you something. And they said I was listening to an audio recording of ACI class 6, driving down the highway, and my car bursts into flame. And I get out safely, but my car, burns up completely and the audio CD melts. And the reason he's telling this story is because they're telling the story really happy about it. They're not going, you made my car burst into flame. They're going, this stuff really works. My car caught on fire because I was studying Diamond Cutter Sutra. And wow, I am so happy about it. Because they're thinking, if I had seeds to have stuff burn up in a fire, it could have been my house. It could have been me. It could have been a lifetime in a hell realm of fire, right? They got it. And so again, his story wasn't that it happened. His story was that they were so happy about it. It's an interesting shift in attitude, wouldn't it be? If every time something lousy happened, we'd go, yay, right? Burn that one off. Yeah, okay. So we're on to class 9. In class 9, the next thing that happens in the sutra is that Subhuti says to Lord Buddha, what should we call this teaching? Like Subhuti's probably thinking, in the future, we're gonna want to hear this one again. How do we ask for it? What should we call this teaching so that we can ask for it again? From our perspective, it's like it's a book. It's been written down. It should have a title so that we can find it in the card catalog. But at that time, this is the first time it's being heard, and we're going to want to hear it again. So what should we call this teaching? Lord Buddha says, call it Prajna Paramita, Sharab Kiparatu Chimpa in Tibetan. So let's start our vocabulary here. Spirit. There. Prajna Paramita is the Sanskrit. Sharab Kiparo Chimpa is the Tibetan we learned. Paramita means perfection. Prajna means wisdom. Sharab means wisdom. Paro to Chimpa means gone to the other side, the perfection. Paramita means gone to the other side, perfection. So the perfection of wisdom. Let's call this teaching, this sutra, the perfection of wisdom. But it's curious because it's called the Diamond Cutter Sutra, not the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. And we already heard that we don't know how it got that title. We know that it did get that title because that's the title on the text, the ancient text from 868 AD, Tang Dynasty, China, which is the oldest one they've ever found. And it has the reputation of being the first printed book. Although I think we would have to say it's the first printed book that we have, because who knows if there weren't ones before that have been destroyed or not found. But that particular Diamond Cutter Sutra text that is in existence in the British Museum, apparently, it was called the Diamond Cutter Sutra. And yet in the sutra, it says, this is called the perfection of wisdom. So Geshe-la says, somewhere along the way between 550 BC and 868 AD, that's a long time, somebody connected the dot between the analogy of the diamond or the metaphor of the diamond and the subject matter perfection of wisdom. And so I don't know, probably in their meditation, they asked Lord Buddha, can I call this Diamond Cutter Sutra? And they got permission and they put it on there, but it's stuck. And you know, we heard at the beginning, it's probably the most significant part of the teaching is that the title it has is not mentioned. It's something that's not in the book. But anyway, so Buddha does not say, let's call it Diamond Cutter Sutra. He says, the name of this teaching is Prajnaparamita. And Subhuti, what do you think? Does that perfection of wisdom exist? Yeah, what is Subhuti, you know, looking like Kong Li goes, no, it doesn't exist. And Buddha says, right. And that's why we can call it the perfection of wisdom. Get it? And it's like Geshe-la says, that's the heart and soul of the wisdom that Buddha is teaching in this teaching, is this refrain. Does such and such exist? No. Right. Which is why we can call it such and such. So when we say call it, it means put the identity onto the thing. And then that's what it is. The English word sounds like all you have to do is make up a name, make up a word, and that's what it'll be. And it implies that, oh, you know, I can just go, I'll call it chocolate cake. And then it'll be chocolate cake. And that doesn't seem to work. So it can't just be, we can call it something by way of deciding to. We understand that we can call it something forced to do so by our mental seeds ripening, right? We have to know the punchline to quite connect the dot. So I'm getting ahead of myself here. In this phrase, Prajnaparamita or Paramita, excuse me, Sherab ki paratu chimpa, perfection of wisdom. That term is used in 4 different ways. Geshe-la calls it 4 different kinds of perfection of wisdom, but it's not so much 4 different kinds, it's 4 different meanings of that phrase, perfection of wisdom. So one of those 4 is the natural perfection of wisdom. Natural perfection of wisdom. This term is used to refer to emptiness. Emptiness is something that has never inspired an afflicted state of mind ever since beginningless time in the mind of someone who's experiencing it directly. The natural perfection of wisdom is not a mental thing. It's not a physical thing. It's an absence, a sheer absence of self-identity, of whatever is being addressed. So they say there's nothing else you can say about it, but then they go on to try to describe. So another like way understanding of the natural perfection of wisdom is that it's the ultimate reality. the ultimate reality of all existing things, is also known as the natural perfection of wisdom. It's an unchanging absence. Not an absence that is self-existent, but an unchanging absence that is present the instant there's an appearing thing that is lacking its own nature, right? All appearing things lack their own nature. The instant they are in existence, they're 100% lacking their own nature. So the emptiness, our friend the pen's natural perfection of wisdom is 100%, as long as this thing we're calling a pen exists. As minute it's destroyed, its natural perfection of wisdom disappears. The natural perfection of wisdom of something does not be born, grow, decline, destroy the way the thing does, right? The pen gets put together, and finally, oh, full on pen. It gets used. Oh, out of ink, no longer pen, throw it away, gone. 100% natural perfection of wisdom as long as it exists. 100% no natural perfection of wisdom because there's nothing to be empty, right? So natural perfection of wisdom is an absence, an unchanging thing, not eternal, not permanent, but not changing. Another meaning of Prajnaparamita is textural perfection of wisdom, meaning that the books, the audios, the teachings. But specifically, the text, the audios, the teachings of sutras and commentaries that present unerringly the Mahayana path. So the Mahayana path includes an accurate description of emptiness, a highest school description of emptiness. I don't mean accurate, I mean complete, a complete description of emptiness and dependent origination. So the textual perfection of wisdom is not just any Dharma text. Vinaya text would not be included in that. Not that they're not Dharma. They're not part of the genre of literature that unerringly teach the Mahayana path of emptiness and dependent origination. So the textual perfection of wisdom, it's a positive thing. It's a presence. So I don't mean positive, negative. I mean present versus absent. It's a present thing. It's a caused thing. It's changing thing. It's a physical thing. It can be destroyed. It can be created. Another way that Prajnaparamita has used is called the path perfection of wisdom. Remember, when we use the term path, we can be talking about the practices we do to get to a realization, or we could be meaning the realization itself that we got to from those practices. The path perfection of wisdom is the term they use for the wisdom of a bodhisattva imbued with method and wisdom. And that's kind of a confusing definition, right? It's using the word that we're trying to define in the definition twice. And in third grade, when I learned to define things, that was illegal, but here it is in our precise Buddhist literature. The path perfection of wisdom is referring to the wisdom of a bodhisattva imbued with wisdom and method. So there are bodhisattvas that are not imbued with method and wisdom. And so that's why it's needing to be clarified. And that's a long story. So method and wisdom is code for correct view with bodhicitta. Here, the bodhicitta is our deceptive bodhicitta that we learned means the bodhicitta that we're saying to ourselves in words, I want to reach Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. It's us in our appearing reality, deceptive reality, holding in mind that we want to be the one that brings the end of suffering to my whole world. That bodhicitta, combined with correct worldview, which is understanding emptiness, and so how our behavior affects our reality. When you marry those two together, that's what wisdom and method is talking about. Wisdom is the correct worldview. Method is the bodhicitta, because it spurs our behavior. When a bodhisattva has the wisdom of those two, it means the state of mind that's seen the truth of the marriage of those two. So path perfection of wisdom is talking about the realizations that someone imbued with bodhicitta comes out with from their direct perception of emptiness. That's a mental thing. That's also an appearing thing, that realization. It is a changing thing. It won't ever go away, but it is changing. It is caused. So far, we have the natural perfection of wisdom, which is an absence, an unchanging thing, but not permanent. We have the text's perfection of wisdom, which are positive things, physical things, changing. We have the path perfection of wisdom, also a positive thing, changing thing, but a mental thing. And the fourth one is the result perfection of wisdom, which really does mean the perfection of wisdom as the result. So this is referring to the omniscience of a Buddha. The result perfection of wisdom is the omniscience of a Buddha. It's the result of all the deeds done under the influence of our path perfection of wisdom. That is the result of all the deeds done because of what we learned in the textual perfection of wisdom. And it can come about because of the natural perfection of wisdom of all aspects of the three spheres of every experience. So is the omniscience of a Buddha a positive thing? Is it a presence? Yes. Is it created? Yes. Is it changing? That's what we're thinking about. It's like if omniscience is perceiving all existing things in all three times at all times, doesn't it seem like it ought to just stay the same all the time? And yet all the things that it's perceiving are changing, even as it's perceiving them all in all time. So the mind that is perceiving them has to also be changing. And it's, I don't know, right, my limited mind can't conceive of it, but it's worth trying to work it out and then go, whoa, it's beyond me, it's bigger than that. It is a changing thing. And yet it is a positive, created, changing thing that is eternal. It's constantly perpetuating itself. Is it a physical thing, mental thing, or thing which is neither physical nor mental? It's the state of awareness of a Buddha. So it's in the category of mental things, they say. Result, perfection of wisdom. So we heard that the word paramita means gone to the other side, already done it. And that the gone to the other side means perfected. We heard that only an omniscient mind can, in fact, do a perfection of giving. Though only an omniscient mind gives with perfection. And then we heard, but there's still needy people in the world, needy beings in the world. So how can you say that even a Buddha has perfected the perfection of giving if there are still people who need to be given too? And we learned, well, that's not what defines the perfection of giving. It's the state of mind that is perfected, meaning seeing perfectly what that being needs to give up and take up, and giving them that, being that. So they're giving. Geshe said a Buddha's giving is the willingness to give, always constantly willing to give whatever anybody needs. Right? Technically, they're always being what that other one needs, not just giving, not like, oh, here, I'll take from this closet and give it to them. It's you manifest what they need. My point is, if paramita means gone to the other side, and we had these 4 different kinds of prajna paramita, which one of them must be the true meaning of perfection of wisdom? It must be the 4th one, the result perfection of wisdom, as the real perfection of wisdom, because it's the one in which we now have the wisdom with which we do our deeds of a Buddha. So it means that the true perfection of wisdom is this result perfection of wisdom, the omniscience of Buddha. Having reached the goal. But then we learn that an Arya Bodhisattva doing their practices of giving, etc., they are practicing the perfection of wisdom because now the seeds that they plant as they do their acts of giving are seeds that will move them along the path to their result perfection of wisdom. So, okay, you can call your deeds perfections when in fact they're perfectionizers. Remember that class? And then it's like, well, then I can't even do a perfection of giving until I'm Arya Bodhisattva. And they say, well, no, don't think of it like that, because even before we're Arya Bodhisattva, we can understand intellectually this marriage of karma and emptiness well enough to be using it to choose our behaviors differently with this high intention as we do so. And that's a great goodness that will move us along the path towards that doorway of seeing emptiness directly, that then puts us on the conveyor belt of being able to do our same acts of giving now as perfectionizers. So it's okay to say we're practicing the 6 perfections even before we're doing so in fact, and even before we can do them at all perfectly as Buddhas. So the true meaning of the Prajnaparamita is the goal, reaching Buddhahood. But in this text, when Buddha has said, so when Subhuti has said, what should we call this sutra? Which, and Buddha says, let's call it the perfection of wisdom. Which of the 4 do you think Buddha is talking about? The second one, right? The text, the teaching. This is a teaching. Let's call this teaching the perfection of wisdom. The teaching isn't the perfection of wisdom, because we just heard that the perfection of wisdom really is the omniscience in the mind of the Buddha. But we can call it the perfection of wisdom so that we understand what its subject matter is going to be, so that we can, use it, understand it. So Geshe-la said, it's like if your car needs repair and you decide you're going to do it yourself, and you're looking through the library for a book to help you know what to do, and you find a book that's called Car Repair, you don't think that inside that book will be your fixed car. You know that inside that book are instructions on how to fix your car. The book can't fix your car. The book isn't your fixed car. The book is telling us how to do it. And yet we can call the book Car Repair perfectly legitimately, even though the book itself is not car repair. So this teaching that becomes a book, we can call the perfection of wisdom. It's not the perfection of wisdom. It's the instructions on how to fix your car, on how to get to the perfection of wisdom. And it seems like, duh, but Geshe-la took a lot of time to describe that. I'm not taking as much time. There's something important about this idea. A book called Auto Repair is not auto repair, but we can call the book Auto Repair so that we know what's in the book, so we can use it and apply that to, what shall we call this teaching? Call it the perfection of wisdom. Does it exist? No. Right. Which is why we can call it perfection of wisdom. How is it that it doesn't exist? When you read the book, read the words you're reading, and you have them all printed out maybe, and you're thinking, okay, I'm reading the reading from reading 5. And I know reading 6 and, well, there isn't one, 7 and the rest are in my binder. I haven't looked at them yet, but I know they're there. Don't we think that there are words on the page that have meaning that have already been there? But technically, those words don't appear there until you look at them. And it's like, but I have looked at them because I printed them, right? So they're there. But those ones won't be the ones there when you get there to read it. What we're experiencing as we read it is being laid onto it by our mind as we experience it. There's no Diamond Cutter's Sutra other than that. So how come it's not different every time I read it? Technically it is. Technically we are. Every time we read it, we understand it a little differently. Sometimes better, sometimes worse in my case. It is different. The fact that there's consistency, that it seems to have the same theme every time I pull it out, rather than, I pull it out and it's a story of Cinderella. That doesn't seem to happen, but it could. It depends on the reader's seeds as they're reading. So call it Prajnaparamita and recognize that perfection of wisdom does not exist in those words. Excuse me. Whatever we experience of it is coming from our own ripenings. Buddha doesn't go into describing all of that. I'm sorry. But he's pointing it out in this sequence. We can call it the perfection of wisdom. Our seeds can ripen, that this text can have in it the clues that we need to guide our behavior, such that we can grow our wisdom, such that we can reach that actual perfection of wisdom, our own omniscience. And Geshe says this exchange holds the crux of the middle way, the Madhyamika. What should we call this thing? Call it the perfection of wisdom. Does it exist? No. Right. Which is why we can call it the perfection of wisdom. What do we call this thing? Water bottle. Does the water bottle exist? No. Right. Just why we can call it water bottle. What's this thing? Water bottle. Does it exist? Not the way I think it does. Right. Which is why my seeds can ripen water bottle. My seeds ripen drinking from water bottle. My seeds ripen water bottle leaking all over my computer. Yuck. Right. If we were to say, what do we call this thing? Oh, it's water bottle. Does it exist? Yes, it shows itself as water bottle to everybody. Would we be able to say, and that's why I can call it a water bottle? I mean, my own mind's going, yes, that's why I call it water bottle, because it says, I'm your water bottle, Suzanne. And it's like, no, that water bottle doesn't exist, never has, couldn't, totally impossible. The one I call water bottle, ta-da, here it is. Middle way. That's middle way. I see something, I think its identity is in it. I remind myself, not possible because different beings can perceive it in different ways. Therefore, it's my results ripening. If it's good, I was kind, thank you, I'll share it. If it's bad, I was nasty, so sorry, burn it off, don't repeat. Do the opposite. So it's this domino effect that starts from the looks like it's in it, and we reject that. We pull away the gotcha, and then start this domino of their force. This sutra has all that packed into it, but in this very cryptic way. So let's take a break, because we're getting into what middle way really means next. And it's a good time to stop and get refreshed. We'll pause the recording. So Madhyamaka means middle way. And why is that, like, of all the things that they could have called this philosophical belief system, what do they mean by middle way? And so it's describing our situation of being as if we are walking on this narrow path along the edge of those, new tall baby mountains. You know how the Andes and the Himalayas, the mountains, when you see them from the airplane above, they're so sharp. The tips are so sharp. It's like there's no way you could walk along that. The wind would just blow you over. Whereas in the United States, the Rocky Mountains are our biggest ones. And when you see them from the air, they are mostly kind of rounded. You can walk along the top of the Rocky Mountains. They're not hillsides, but they're not like this. But so suppose that you're walking along the very razor sharp edge of one of these Andes mountains, but the mountain doesn't go like this, it goes like this. So you're on the tip, and if you were to fall off on one side, whoa, right? You're going to fall all the way to the ocean. Other side, all the way down, not just tumble, like blah, down. And you've got this path that you're trying to stay on and not fall off the cliff on either side. The middle way is trying to describe this sense that a certain wrong belief is falling off this cliff, and a certain other wrong belief is falling off the other cliff. And they say that in life, if we fall off a cliff and die, we've lost our life, and that's a bad thing. That would be nasty. But these two cliffs that we're talking about, to fall off of them, it's not just that we lose this life. Either cliff makes us lose our opportunity in the Dharma, for wisdom, for reaching wisdom. So to fall off either one of these cliffs is worse than dying, because it takes lifetimes to get back up there on that narrow path again. So they're wanting to convey this precarious position that we are in as Mahayana Madhyamika practitioners, and take it seriously and appreciate it and not get sloppy. I'm talking to myself here because of the danger of these two cliffs. Okay, so what do we mean? These two cliffs refer to two beliefs. One of them is called the Yuta, and the other one is Metta. Yuta means the extreme, the cliff edge of existence. Yu means exists. So Yuta really means exists extreme. Ta means the edge of the cliff, the extreme. So what they mean by Yuta is this belief, or the way that we experience that things exist in the way that they seem to exist, the way they look. Geshe-la says water bottle looks like it identifies itself as water bottle. Angry yelling boss looks like their identity in them from them. Most beings have this experience, have this belief. You know, if we went out in our neighborhood and anybody who walked by, we said, look, all those cars, do they exist the way we think they do? What are they going to say? Yeah, of course they do. You know, why are you asking such a dumb question? Metta, may means doesn't exist, extreme. This metta is a belief that comes out of an incomplete or inaccurate teaching on emptiness, because it's this belief that says, well, if things don't exist in the way that they appear, then they must not exist at all. And if things don't really exist, then what does it matter, my behavior? If things don't exist, then neither does the results of my behavior exist. And so, you know, morality doesn't matter, shouldn't matter. That explanation, like it doesn't feel like it could really happen, because, you know, just to come to the conclusion, oh, things don't exist the way they look, doesn't make the water bottle something that I can put my hand through, or doesn't make it disappear. I don't get this sense of misunderstanding emptiness makes me think I can do anything I want. But apparently it does happen. I'm not saying I'm, so good. And Geshe-la has told this story. I hope that it didn't really, I hope it's just somebody's story, that there was a Buddhist practitioner had been to a teaching on emptiness. And when they were checking out of the hotel, their overstuffed luggage popped open and the hotel towels were in there. And they said, well, we just learned everything's empty, so it doesn't matter. And it's like, the epitome of wrong understanding of what it means to be empty is to say, well, then I can take the towels because I want them. and not end up, having a bad result from that. So that would be over the edge, right? If we came to the belief that, well, if things don't exist the way that they appear, they must not exist at all. And so my behavior doesn't matter. And so I'll do anything that my, impulse says to do. And we'd end up being, wildly selfish and harmful. And you can see how that would be a cliff that would send us to lower realms for a long, long time. And it would be many, many lifetimes before we would be able to climb back up to a life in which our morality mattered. Fast forward all these years for myself, cooking all of this and working with all of this. And the way I relate to this metta is when I hear the explanation that this water bottle, here it is, my direct experience of it is that its identity is in it, which is why I can find it when I go looking for it. But then I realize, no, the teachings say it's nothing but my projection. And if I watch, I feel my mind's reaction to those words, it's nothing but projection. There's a part of my mind that goes, oh, so it isn't real, right? Oh, so it's a figment of my imagination. Oh, so it's like a movie, or, oh, it's like, right? There's an instant of, if it's nothing but projection, it's not real, bless you. And if I let that go on, it would be over the cliff, because projections, come on, projections can't do anything. Projection can't hurt me. Projections can't help me. Then it really wouldn't matter what I did. If everything's just like in a movie, because, you can sit and watch a movie and be all involved in what's going on. And if it gets bad and you don't like it, you just turn the channel and stop it, right? Just walk away, doesn't matter. Right? Your own behavior doesn't matter when you're watching a movie. Your behavior in a dream disappears when you wake up from the dream. If we're thinking, when we say, oh, that's just my projections, if we have this, even, this idea, it means things are not real because they're projections, then we're in danger of going over that cliff. And that would be from an incomplete teaching on emptiness. If we just left it, this is your projection, nothing but. And we hadn't spent hours and hours and hours working on what we mean by projection. It's a great word. So, I was trying to come up with a different one that wouldn't make me automatically go, oh, it's not real. But in doing so, I realized, no, that's the struggle. That, it's important to do that struggle. So to make the distinction between perceiving something and projecting something, it's a great way of helping ourselves know whether we're on that path. So let's come back. Yutta, things exist the way they appear. Metta, well, if they don't exist like that, then they don't exist at all. The two cliff edges. The ta, the yutta and the metta, refer to the truth of those two statements. Things exist the way they appear to, yutta. But is that statement true? No. So it gets really slippery. This cliff edge of exists extreme is not actually a truth. The truth does not exist. The viewpoint exists in our minds. Things exist the way they appear. but it's not true that they do. So we're holding to a viewpoint of truth that's not true. Do you see how mixed up we are? So another way of saying yuta is holding to a belief in the self-existence of things, others, self experiences. Yuta. Then there's the wrong belief in that idea, which is a little different than the idea itself. And they use the term Tarnzen to explain the difference between the ta, the wrong view, and the belief in the wrong view. So we just said there's this wrong view. Things exist the way that they appear. The wrong view does not exist, but the holding to the wrong view, the Tarnzen, does exist. The ta means the ta, the extreme belief. The nzin is to hold it, to hold to that as true, to hold to things exist the way that they appear, to hold to things have their identities in them is yutarnzin. Do you see the difference? It's the belief in things as having a self-nature that is the actual cliff, because the things having their own nature don't actually exist, doesn't actually exist. But our belief in it does. And if we believe in things as own natures, it means we believe that the nasty, angry, yelling boss yelling at me is the cause of my displeasure. And so I should do something to stop them from hurting me. Right? And what I can do, what I should do is anything that will work in the moment. Results of this holding to a mistaken view. But what we're holding to doesn't actually exist. We believe it does. Yutarnzin. Is the angry yelling boss not there at all? No, definitely there. Definitely unpleasant. Definitely me upset. But in them, from them? My upset? No. Easily established by thinking, would everybody experience what I'm experiencing in this same situation? Our mind wants to say, yes, of course. But then if you just apply logic, it's like, no. Some people like to get yelled at. Some people like me to get yelled at. So sorry for them. Right? So many different scenarios we could come up with, all of which show us that that experience, that yelling boss yelling at me, making me feel bad this way, has to be unique to me, which means it has to come from me. Some part of it has to come from me, which means it's not in it, from it. Holding us from falling off the cliff of yutarnzin. We fall off the cliff when we hold to, yes, the boss is in them, from them, yelling at me, and so I should yell back, or I should lie to get out of it. And do some deed that, when that deed comes back to us, will be unpleasant also. Yutarnzin. Megtarnzin is holding the belief that, well, if that angry boss is not in them, from them, like I think they are, well, then they're just a figment of my imagination. They don't really exist at all. I don't need to respond at all. I can just walk out, and not expect to have any kind of ramification of my behavior. Because look, everything's not real. I don't know, somehow we're also not concluding I'm not real, which I think would keep us off that cliff if we went there, because it's like, yes, I am, right? There's nothing I can prove to myself that would make me all of a sudden become non-existent, right? Not matter. Everything matters. So May turns in. Mm. To work with May turns in. Let me see if I can get this. To recognize that the belief in things not existing at all as a conclusion of they don't exist from their own side is actually sort of absurd. Because just by saying the angry boss doesn't exist from their own side doesn't make them poof out of existence. The experience doesn't stop. So to work between the belief in things as self-nature and the belief in things is no nature at all, which is what May turns in would be, helps us figure out, well, what is the middle way between those two? If the self-existent thing is a non-existent thing, but the thing is still there happening to me, what's really going on here? I am having an experience, but I'm not having an experience in the way I think I'm having the experience, but I'm not having an experience at all, right? We're like between turns in, recognizing what I think is there can't be there, but something's there. Why? What? Okay. So Madhyamika is hanging out between these two beliefs. The ability to say, seems like angry yelling boss is in them from them, making me upset. I understand that yelling boss isn't there, but there is a yelling boss there. Now what do I do? Right? What do I do with that? Is middle way. So a clue to this Yu Tanzin, Mei Tanzin is the idea of takta. Takta means the extreme, ta, of permanence, tak. Finding this tak turns in belief in things, this permanence, is a clue to catching ourselves being able to fall off either one of these cliffs. Our belief of something having its own nature leads us to believe that that thing is somehow permanent. And it's like, no, we don't. I mean, I know that the angry yelling boss is not going to be angry, 2 hours from now. He's not going to be angry at the next person. The angry boss starts and stops, comes and goes. But inside our belief system is that boss who gets angry at me has a certain permanent quality. They're always going to be that boss who has the tendency to blame me for those things, right? I'm going to distrust them a little bit. because I don't really believe that their nature of that boss who gets angry at me is going to change. Right? We don't think they're like a billboard cutout and not going to change from day to day. But we do have some kind of sense of things as permanence, things as identities in them are permanently in them. Takta. We know they're not. We've all had an experience where there was somebody we met and we didn't like them for some reason. And, maybe forced to have different experiences with them, and over time, or maybe something happens and now you're friends. And when you think back, it's like, and someone reminds you, Sarani, don't you remember when you thought that person was such a jerk? And I'd go, really? Them? I really like them. Like, who changed? Ignorant me would say, well, before they were in this circumstance and so they were a jerk, but then they got promoted at work and they're happier with themselves. And so now they can be nicer and now I can like them because they changed, right? Don't we think that they changed? We don't automatically go, wow, my seeds changed. So what do we do with those jerks in our lives? You can avoid them. But if we have jerk person seeds, we can avoid this one and there'll be another one over there. And if we think, oh, I really want to be friends with that jerk, but not until they stop being a jerk, we're going to wait eons if we ourselves don't do something. So what we should do would be to go to them and say, you're such a jerk, but I really want to like you. But if you would just change your behavior in these ways, then we can be friends, okay? Like, that's not what we do either. I mean, you could try. Most of us do, in subtle ways, try to change somebody. I'm guilty with Sumati. And it doesn't work, if you noticed. Because how many times when somebody came to you and said, Sarani, if you would just change your like this, then I could like you, right? How many times did I go, oh, okay, I'll do that. I want you to like me. Instead, I said, okay, see ya, right? No wonder I'm going to get that reaction if I ever do that to somebody else. So wrong conclusion. But people do change, don't they? We have had that experience. Even without setting out to make them change, people change, which tells us that what we thought they were in them from them cannot be true. Because if their identities are in them from them, coming at me, independent of me, then I cannot experience them in any different way than I ever experienced them. Because if I experience them differently, then it means my experience of them is different, which means that my experience of them can't be dependent on them. And it's like, yes, it does. We always experience things as different from, every time we experience them, we know they're different. And we still think that they're different from their own side. Do you see how crazy we are? We believe their identity is in them, from them, independent of me. And we believe every time I experience them, they are different. And those are inconsistent beliefs. We are believing in something as permanent that's not permanent. We are believing in something as the other's identity that isn't just not permanent, it's non-existent. We've never experienced anything, anybody, in a way other than was unique to our experience of them. Can we say that? When I experience somebody, that experience is unique to me. And the next time I experience them, it is again unique to me. Have I changed between when I saw them yesterday and when I see you today? Yes, I've changed. So you've changed. For me, you're different every single time. Well, if you take that to a really deep conclusion, well, then I never see anybody the same way 2 moments in a row, which means they're not really there, right? If I'm standing in front of you now and now and now and now, and I'm aware that the you now is different than the you now is different than the you now, will the real you please stand up, know you? Do you see how we could go off the wrong cliff? Well, if people are changing moment by moment, there's no them there at all. It doesn't matter what I do. Wrong conclusion. Yes, they're changing moment by moment because my seeds are changing moment by moment. So I want to plant seeds moment by moment to make my future experience of them us liking each other, us getting along. Let's, save the world together. Let's love beings together. We can create anything, not in the moment, but by way of planting our interaction seeds with others, because we understand this middle way between Yu Tarnzin and Mei Tarnzin, because in understanding that middle way, we no longer hold to their identity in them, from them, that has to be the same every single time. Because it would have to be the same every single time if it was in them, from them, independent of me. So even as we believe their identity is in them, we don't believe the ramification, well, then they always have to be the same. And if they're not the same, then they can't be in them, from them. They have to be something related to my perception. Middle way is always this until we've got it clear enough that we're walking this straight path. Right? It's like we're drunk, we're weaving down this dangerous path until we get it right. How do we get it right? We said the jerk that's in them, from them, is not there. But it's not that there's nothing out there. And it's not even though that jerk out there is empty of self nature, they're a jerk out there. It is because that jerk out there is empty of self nature. That jerk out there does exist for me, forced by my ripening seeds to see them that way, forced by my projections. So what do I want to do about it? I want to stop being the jerk to others. Where am I making jerk in my world seeds? I'm not a jerk. But we're in a crowd and we inadvertently bump into somebody, and that somebody's reaction is, what a jerk, right? Oh, whoops. When I could have been more careful, right, to not jostle the other. We're not in perfect control, of course. It's going to happen that we'll make jerk person seeds. when our reaction is, get off my foot, you jerk. Right? But it's that simple, catching our own mind when we're in those kind of situations and judging, getting cut off in traffic, right? Our reaction is that, right? Maybe it's not jerk that you call them, but negative reaction because we've been somehow offended. It happens so subtly. And they are all opportunities to catch ourselves, right? Which cliff did we just go off? Come back. Make up some story that will allow you to go have compassion instead. Compassion with them and compassion with yourself for your automatic reaction so that we can cut the automatic pilot cycle. It's staying on the middle way. Staying on the middle way is revealed by our reactions to experiences. It's not so much our thinking. Well, it is, because that's what guides our reaction, but it's revealed by way of our behavior. So if we want to be happy, and we come to understand that things are empty of their own natures, then our conclusion is that we want to be more kind. The teachings spend as much time teaching us about morality as they do teaching us about emptiness and dependent origination. The connection is that it's through our behavior that we make the imprints in our mind that come out as the projections of our experiences. Pleasant experiences are the results of kindness deeds. Unpleasant experiences are the results of unkindness deeds. What kinds of kindness? What kinds of unkindness? Well, here, I'll give you a guideline. 10 things to avoid. Can do the opposite. Refuge advices, bodhisattva vows. We have all that vowed behavior. And if we weren't well trained, it would seem like, well, Buddha just lays down the law. Do this, don't do that. And it'll work if our faith devotion is strong enough to follow it through. For most of us, there's a bar that our devotion isn't strong enough. Like teenagers push back against parents' rules. Parents' rules are designed to keep us safe. Teens see them as restrictions, not liberating. And we do the same thing with our morality until we understand why it was taught. And then once we understand why it was taught, our vows are no longer like these limiting things. They become our way of life because we want to live that way. We would choose it ourselves, even if Buddha had not said. Because those are the behaviors that create the seeds that bring about experiences that are pleasant. And we want to be making pleasantness. Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants any suffering. Right? And as a bodhisattva, we're pledged to create more happiness in the world for everybody. And we're part of it. And doing it is fun. It gets to be fun, whether we're doing the kindness or we're burning off the unpleasantness from having studied the Diamond Cutter Sutra. We're still having a good time doing it. Like the person, Gashala, my car burned up. Yay. How fun would that be? So how do we get rid of these two? Like, how do we make it such that our perception of this narrow, dangerous path is now as if it's a mile wide? Like the gymnast on the balance beam. The balance beam is 4 inches wide, right? 4 inches. I get on the balance beam and it's like, whoa, this is dangerous place. The accomplished gymnast gets on the balance beam, and to her perception, that balance beam is this wide. No, she has no, I'm trying to find a word. No concept that a thing this wide is the least bit dangerous to flip themselves upside down, right? On. They're right. Their perception is, it's so familiar. That's the word I was getting. It's so familiar that they can smoothly, easily do all those amazing stunts on this 4-inch wide thing. So our 4-inch wide middle way path will be as effortlessly, right, stayed upon as the gymnast on her balance beam. When we can get in this middle way between Yuta Metta. In Jetsun Kappa's 3 principal paths, if you remember that, there was this verse towards the end that said, the appearance prevents the existence extreme, and emptiness that of non-existence. And if you see how emptiness shows in cause and effect, you will never be stolen off by extreme views. Appearances prevent the existence extreme, and emptiness prevents that of non-existence. Doesn't that seem backwards? Doesn't it seem like emptiness of something would show us that the appearance isn't really true, and that the appearance would show us that things don't not exist at all? But Tsongkhapa is saying, no, something's appearance proves that it doesn't exist in the way that it appears. And to know its emptiness proves that things don't exist at all. It's really a beautiful verse to catch that nuance. It's holding the middle way to understand that. When we see how emptiness shows in cause and effect, we are effortlessly on that middle way path. How does emptiness show in cause and effect? We're not talking about the cause and effect of the acorn making the oak tree. We're talking about the cause and effect of my behavior creating my experience in the future. Emptiness and dependent origination make what appears to be cause and effect. My karma ripening makes it such that I need a key to start my car. The key is the worldly cause of starting the car, but my karma is the real cause of the effect, key starting car. Without understanding the empty nature of things, that won't make sense. Misunderstanding that emptiness of things, that won't make sense. Understanding the two together, we understand how our world now makes sense. Okay. So how do we get there? First, we want to come to understand dependent origination, Nang Wei Yuta Self. Cell means illuminate or light up. And its connotation is the room is dark and you switch on the light. And like the darkness just goes away. Now you can see what's there. So this term cell means what understanding does to a misunderstanding. So if we misunderstand something's true nature, we're in the dark. The object is there, but it's like we're in the dark. And then we switch on our light of wisdom and oh, now we can see the water bottle coming from me. Whereas before, all I could see was the water bottle coming from it. The water bottle coming from it is like being in the dark. The light of wisdom switches on, oh, water bottle from me, real water bottle from me. Whereas what real water bottle from it, impossible. So if we want to get rid of the yuta, if we want to shine the light on the wrong belief that things exist in them, from them, we need to nangwei. We need to understand dependent origination. Understanding dependent origination means understanding the thing about planting seeds in our mind by our behavior that then ripen into our experience. We're learning intellectually, we get it, we get it, we get it. We meditate on it. Someday we have that experience, like standing at the stove, making the water for your tea, and you experience the mental image pot on stove, like in between you and the information that's out there. You experience the silver seed ripening, Geshe Michael calls it. I'm not sure it'll exactly be like that for everybody. But we experience directly our own karmic seed ripening, making the identity of that whole experience. And then that experience is complete in every way that our sensory experience can't be complete, right? We can't see the back of the pot, the bottom of the pot, the inside and the outside at the same time. But our experience of the pot on stove includes all of that. So it has to be this mental image of the whole that isn't from the thing out there, but is definitely happening. And it's happening to me, with me. So it has to be something related to me, my mind, my experience. To have that experience is the supreme moment of deceptive reality, we learned. And it's such a powerful goodness that if we go and meditate on that experience, it will take us to the direct perception of, and nothing exists in any other way than that. The emptiness, the ultimate reality of all existing things, including ourself, probably most especially ourself. So in order to get to the middle way, we start with this deep understanding of dependent origination and what it means. Right? Some schools say dependent origination means everything depends on causes. Everything depends on conditions. Everything depends on their parts. Everything depends on, being interrelated to everything. Everything's relative to each other. You can't know tall without knowing short. All of those are correct, but they're not the ultimate meaning of dependent origination. They aren't the meaning that will help us change our behavior enough to stop perpetuating samsara. And this sutra is about how to do that, how to create the causes for Buddha paradise for everybody, right? What's a bodhisattva to do? Bring all beings to nirvana. What beings will that be? Right, which is why you can bring them to nirvana. How am I going to do it? You know, cover all those planets with all those jewels. Is that enough goodness? Actually, no. Read the Diamond Cutter Sutra. Well, how does that work? Well, it can't work, which is why it can work. Yeah, I mean, it goes like that. Back and forth, back and forth. So by working with our understanding of dependent origination, our behavior changes for the better, hopefully, directed towards our goal, bodhicitta. That goodness will bring us along to that direct experience of the seeds ripening, and that will bring us to the direct perception of the true nature of all existing things, emptiness, tompa. Tompa is the word for the emptiness we will experience. Tongpe is the word for the experiencing of it. So there's a difference between the emptiness that is experienced and the experiencing emptiness, the direct perception of emptiness and the emptiness that is being perceived are different. The emptiness is an unchanging, unfunctioning, can't do anything thing. The tongpe, the experience of it, is very effective in changing us forever. We've learned that. So it takes this experience of the direct experience of emptiness based on our understanding, our like direct experience that things are mental seeds ripening and nothing but, to actually get to this effortless on the balance beam state of mind of the middle way from direct experience. Not exist in it from it because I just saw it's coming from my mind. Not existent at all because I just saw that the empty nature of all things is their all potential to be anything according to whose seeds ripen it as what? Middle way. So it comes out as these 4 statements, right? Our understanding is because things are empty, they do exist. Because things are empty, they can change. Because the seeds of the creator of them change. Because things are empty, we can be forced to see ourselves as Buddha me and Buddha paradise emanating. Can't we? If we had our own natures in us, from us, the way we think, now, could we ever become Buddha? No. Because if we're ignorant, suffering, selfish beings now, and it's in us, from us, we're stuck. If our ignorant, selfish me is empty of self-existence, nothing but my seeds ripening, forcing me to see myself that way, and I can plant new seeds, what can happen to that selfish, ignorant, slob me? Well, which one would that be? Right? There's no that one that needs to go anywhere. There's just, I need to stop perpetually planting that one. It's so slippery. How do you get rid of something that doesn't exist? we get rid of the belief in it existing. And it, right, it was never there in the first place. So how do we get rid of a belief in something? That's the story that we need to address. There are no self-existent things we need to get rid of. There are beliefs in self-existent things. We need to change a belief, not the things. Do you see? Who's responsible for our beliefs? Yeah. No, my parents gave them to me. Yeah, but I'm keeping them or not keeping them. Okay, so when we understand emptiness well, we cannot think that nothing matters because we know how things really exist. And then we'll know why morality matters. Morality meaning avoiding harming, trying to be kind, and doing both with this motivation to use our behavior to stop the suffering of the world ultimately. Geshe threw in here, we can do an act of truth. I don't know why it came up. An act of truth is where if you want to establish something to happen, then you do something to make the seeds for it under like a high state of mind. And then you establish this act of truth. And you would say, if it's true that when I fed that bird the piece of bread, I had everybody's happiness in mind because I understood karma and emptiness well enough, then may it happen that my Aunt Mary's cancer get healed. Right? We can do this act of truth. And if it's true that we had this high state of mind while we were feeding the bird, then by doing this act of truth dedication, something will shift in Aunt Mary's treatment plan that will help her. And it's kind of a dangerous thing, this act of truth, right? My own mind goes, be careful with acts of truth, because we can do an act of truth and then, gosh darn, Aunt Mary doesn't get healed from her cancer. Or maybe she gets healed from her cancer and she dies in a car accident. You know, it's like, I don't get the result I wanted. Does that mean my act of truth didn't work? And it's like, well, it didn't seem to work. And it would either then mean my act of truth wasn't actually a truth, right? I didn't set it up right. And then that becomes this inside out argument. If my act of truth works, then I did it right. And if my act of truth didn't work, then I didn't do it right. Because acts of truth always work, but that's not true either, is it? But there is a power in doing acts of truth. And I don't know, I kind of wiggle out of it myself when I do an act of truth and I say, you know, if I did this, this, and this, because I did this, this, and this, then may that happen or something better. Like may Aunt Mary's cancer treatment work for her or something better. It leaves me this little caveat, because maybe Aunt Mary dying was better for her than staying. maybe her doorway to heaven was open for her. And who was I to want to keep her in life? Not saying, got cancer, let me help you go. Your doorway's open. I don't mean that. But acts of truth are slippery things. But it's an act of truth to do an act of truth, whether it works or not. Yes, Chris.
Didn't an act of truth come up with the king of Kalinka?
Yeah, that's a great one. If it's true that I love you, King, then may my fingers and toes come back together. Their act of truth happened immediately, didn't it? Great piece. Thank you. So to keep ourselves on that balance beam of the middle way, there's this fourfold facts, they're called. And they're here. Rang Shinki Me, Kyang Dani Mepa Mayan. Rang Shinki Me, first fact. Kyang, but. Second fact. Dani Mepa Mayan. Third fact. Tanye Tsamtu Yu. Fourth fact. But Kyang. Rang Shen Yupa Mayan. Rangshin Kime means nothing exists naturally. Naturally meaning from its own side, self-existently, in the way they appear to, in them, from them, as I perceive them, right? Find the words that tell yourself what's meant by naturally. Nothing exists in it from it. Kyang, but Dani Mepa Mayen. It's not that nothing exists at all. Nothing exists naturally, but it's not that nothing exists at all. Nothing exists in it from it. Nothing exists self-existently, but it's not that nothing exists at all. Tanye, some do you. Everything does exist in name only. Tanye, some do. You is the exist. Things exist in name only. Kyang, but Rangshin Yupa Mayin. It's not that things exist naturally. Rangshin. Things exist in name only, meaning by projection of the one experiencing them. In name only. Name and term. Seeds ripening. Things exist by way of seeds ripening, but it's not that those things exist in them, from them, the way the seeds ripening make us see. When an ignorant mind's seeds ripen, water bottle, the seeds include water bottle in it, from it. Water bottle self-existent. It's still seeds ripening. The water bottle does not exist in it, from it. It does not exist naturally. But it doesn't not exist at all. Here it is. It does exist as our projections. And our projections make us think it exists in it, from it. But it does not exist in it, from it. it exists as projections. Do you see how these four keep us in the middle way? They address all of our misperceptions. The thing looks like it exists from its own side. And we start this. Doesn't exist like that, but it doesn't not exist at all. It does exist as my projection, but it doesn't exist in the way my projection makes me look at it, which is in it from it. Once our projection is no longer projecting in it from it, then our projection, our tane samdu yu, we're seeing it as it really exists, as projection. Right? Our middle way has taken us to 8th level bodhisattva and will continue to take us the rest of the way to omniscience. Nothing exists naturally, but it's not that they don't exist at all. Things exist by way of projections, but they don't exist the way they look until we're seeing them as projections. Got it? That's the middle way. That's that path of the middle way. And that completes your class 9. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help at the beginning of class. What we've gotten a glimpse of from this class, we will use to help them reach their ultimate happiness someday. By way of how we change ourselves, by way of how we choose our behaviors. And that's a great, great goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Feel your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. Ask them to please, please stay close, to continue to guide you, help you, inspire you. And then offer them this goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. Their love, their compassion, their wisdom. It feels so good. We want to keep it forever. And so we know to share it by the power of the goodness that we've just done. May all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every existing being everywhere. See them all filled with this wisdom of the middle way. And so filled with loving kindness. And may it be so. Okay. So thank you so much. Next week, before class, we'll assign the review questions, right? And we'll do review Friday morning. Yeah. Right? Next week, Friday, right? Okay, good. So be sure to be there. So I'm stopping the recording. Stop recording, right? Thank you. Oh, Kongli, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, teacher, for teaching. And this is a very simple question because now I'm doing the exercise, and then while doing it, and then I discovered that my homework. So the answer is different from the answer key. And then is it all right that, because after I check it out and then I write the answer key to my homework there? It's okay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's okay.
because, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just compare, you know, what was I thinking compared to what the answer key is saying versus what I heard in class, like work out the difference. No.
Because I find that one or two questions, after reading the answer key, I still cannot, understand. Maybe I ask you next time.
Too.
Okay.
That's someone Chris also like that.
Gosh, we can't understand the Naivankadra Sutra the first time through. What a surprise.
So maybe next time I can point out, what a question to me where I cannot understand. Maybe I can take it out and ask you next
On the
class.
review class, right? That's the time. The review class will be a good time to hash out those things together. Okay.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, dear Holy Lama. Happy weekend.
You guys too. Have a good
Thank you,
weekend.
teacher. Yeah.
Pia, would you stay? Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop recording. Now I'm stopping recording. Okay.